It's Saturday, March 17th, and welcome to my shop. It's another beautiful day outside here in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know if I really want to be here working today, but I took a couple days off. We went up to Harrison Hot Springs up in British Columbia. It was beautiful up there. I couldn't believe it. So I'm back here today trying to catch up on some loose ends. Yesterday I had Jerson pull the leveling valves off of old gold here. This is my 300 SEL 4.5 with air suspension. And if you've watched any of the other videos, you know the suspension has been leaking air. So it's time to send out these valves to my friend Martin to have him overhaul them. He is the #1 expert in the world, by the way, in dealing with problems with these old air suspension cars that were built by Mercedes back in the 1960s and early 70s. So these are going to get ready to be shipped out, but I thought I should just show them to you very briefly if you haven't seen any of my other videos. And of course I'll put a link in the description below this video that'll take you to the playlist on my air suspension car videos. So come take a look. These are really interesting. These are the 4 valves that he removed from the car, and they really are quite sophisticated and quite complex inside. You wouldn't believe how many little pieces and moving parts are inside one of these valves. But this here is the main valve. It receives the air from the compressor on the engine right here, and then it distributes it out to these other 3 valves. We have 2 in the front, 1 for each front wheel, and then we have 1 in the rear. So there's 3 valves that control the ride height and the air volume going into those air springs on each of the wheels. I'm not going to get into any more detail in this video today, but I thought I would just show them to you. And if you're curious to learn more, just check out the links below. So what I'm going to have to do today in order to get this car off the lift and get it back into storage, because it's going to be a while until these valves come back, I'm going to have to do some emergency blocking of the suspension. Now this car does not have the factory emergency block, so I'm going to have to fabricate something. That's something I'm going to do today, and I'll kind of film how we're going to do that if I have time. But notice here, chrome wheels. You know I'm going to be putting chrome wheels on old gold, and I'm diligently working on trying to find a solution to leaking chrome alloy wheels. If any of you have had these old alloy wheels, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You'll come out, someday and the air has leaked out of the tire. So we've got a couple of the chrome wheels over on the bench, working on them right now. Let me show you what we're doing. I'm absolutely committed to trying to find a solution to this problem with leaking chrome alloy wheels on these older Mercedes-Benzes. I've decided I'm going to use Miracle Paint to see if this can be the answer. So what I've done is I've cleaned these wheels thoroughly, sanded out all that rough corrosion, and then I'm applying Miracle Paint to the entire bead area on both sides of the wheel and on both wheels I'm currently working on. I'm going to come back in a couple days and sand the really rough areas and apply a second coat. And then when we put the tires back on, we'll be using another special product to make sure we can get a good seal. It is amazing all the uses that I found for Miracle Paint. And if this proves to be the cure, then you will understand just how tough that product really is. So we're going to move on to other things in the shop. I've got a number of things I have to do. Maybe, just maybe if I have time, I'm going to get outside and fly one of my model airplanes. I was really planning to go outside and fly this little Foresight. Look at this little model. I think you saw it in the previous episode, but this thing is very light and very fragile. And when you go outside with me now, I think you'll see why we're going to have to postpone this for another Saturday. Well, it's lunch. I can't talk. Well, it's lunchtime and I came outside and the wind's already starting to pick up. When you're flying these lightweight full models, it can get a little exciting when the wind picks up, but it'll probably be okay. I'm going to install one of my lithium polymer batteries. There's the batteries that are going to power this little airplane. We'll go ahead and turn the radio on, make sure it's set to the right aircraft. And then I'm going to anchor this battery down with Velcro in a strap. And then notice how I've got this model set upside down. If the prop actually tries to take off, it's not going to cut my hand. It's going to hit the table there. So I make sure the throttle's all the way back before I plug the battery in. And you're going to hear it bind up right now with the radio. Okay, let's check controls. Okay, looks good. Let's give it a try. Notice I'm using a tray to hold my radio. Now, a lot of people will fly with their thumbs and they can just kind of hang on to the radio at the same time. But I prefer to fly with my fingertip and my thumb on the control. So I use this tray here. It's very relaxing. All right, once again, we're going to give it a quick test.
Cruise mode, spin rates, knife edge mode.
You can see how windy it is. I mean, into the wind, the plane's not even, it's going to go backwards. Look at that. Watch me hover it right into the wind. See, it's going backwards. Look at that.
Spin rates. Knife edge mode.
It's windy up there. So we're going to go ahead and bring it in. I think you've seen enough. Look at this landing. All right, back to work. Now you can see why I like working at the farm.
It's a good spot.
You know, I could have done this without removing the wheels. All I'm trying to do is block this stop right here. You've got the lower control arm and you see these stops that go up in here and hit the subframe. So what I'm using is marine grade 1/2-inch plywood. If you try to use anything else, it's just going to crush it. You can see where here it's already started to crush it. And there's two stops, one here and one on the other side. So I'm going to take the 1/2-inch ply and just push it up in there and push it back as far as I can so it's touching that subframe. Now as I lower the car, this is going to hit the wood's going to go up there and hit that, and it's going to keep the car from bottoming out. Here you can see the air spring or the air billows. We have recently replaced these. So now I'll do the other side and then we'll go to the back and work out a spacing or some sort of blocking for the rear end. By the way, one of the reasons I chose to keep old gold and restore it is because of the lack of rust. You see so many of these W108 sedans and W109s that have a lot of rust, you know, down here in the jack points, rust and holes in the inner fender panels, and of course the floors get all rusty. But if you look at this car here, it is super clean. It's very impressive for one of these early Mercedes-Benz sedans. And let me show you a quick shot underneath the rear of the car. Let the picture speak for itself. Now, blocking the rear end is a little more challenging. I wish I had a picture of the factory emergency block. It's quite clever. It replaces this bumper. This is a stop bumper. You have to remove this and you bolt the factory emergency block. It's made out of steel right in here. And then this axle housing, because this is a swing arm rear end, comes up and hits that and sets the ride height. Now, I'm going to do it with wood, which means I'm not going to be driving it on the open road. Now, the factory emergency blocks are designed to drive down the road, not very fast, but at least you can get somewhere at a very slow speed to get the car either off the freeway or somewhere where you can get it repaired. So I'm going to remove this now. It's held on by a couple 13mm head bolts, and then we're going to come in here and maybe get a 4x4 and kind of fit it and figure out how we'll secure it so it won't fall out when I lower the car. After rummaging around in my old scrap pile, I decided to make the rear blocks out of pipe, steel pipe, so they won't break, okay? You probably use wood, but you gotta use some really tough wood, okay? So I'm going to put this in there in a certain location. I'll show you how in a minute, but if you're gonna do it like I do it, you need to have a block that's about 6 inches in height. You can make it any length you want, but if you want the car to sit about right, it needs to be about 6 inches. So let me show you now what I did to prepare this block and what I'm going to do to kind of make sure this block is going to stay in place. You can see this came off in 2 pieces, like that. Okay, so this came off removing those 2 bolts. And when I cut the pipe, I cut a little V in it so it would sit on the top of the axle like that. Now, I could take a little more time and get this a little more accurate as far as angles, but it's not that critical, because as the rear end comes up, this is going to come right in there tight, and then the axle housing is going to fit up in that V groove. So that's how that's going to look. Now, to keep this in place so it doesn't fall out while I'm lowering the car, I'm just going to get a long bolt that'll go right in that original hole. We'll screw that in. And then I can set this in place like this. You see, and that's going to kind of stay there. Now, as I lower the car down, I will come in here and push this in position. Maybe have somebody help me lower it as I hold that in position right there. And then the weight will come down and get right on the top of that pipe. Now, I know some of you are thinking, hey, Kent, that's a little marginal if you're going to drive this car out of the road. I'm not going to drive this car out of the road. All I'm going to do is move it into the storage building. If you had intentions to drive it out on the road, even at a slow speed, what I would recommend you do is take this plate here, make another plate like it, get a pipe and weld it to that plate, and then bolt this plate back up in here, and then you would have something very, very secure, just like the factory emergency block. Well, you can see I'm not putting the chrome wheels back on. I finally decided I've got 2 chrome wheels that aren't leaking air, but I can guarantee you that they probably will be. So they're going to get restored like the other 2 that I was working on earlier this morning. So we're putting just some steel wheels back on Old Gold here temporarily. Notice here the brake rotor and hub area. You remember what I said in a recent video? It's like almost every car I see, old car I see, has a problem. This has not been maintained. It's rusty. The wheels are sticking to the hubs. The wheels are not seating flat. So this needs my treatment, my wheel mounting restoration kit, but I'm not going to do it today because this car is going into storage for a little while those leveling valves get repaired. So I'll just use my trusty mounting pin. Now, when I put this wheel back on and lower the car, I'm going to have to reach in here with something and kind of line up this pipe. I think it's pretty close right now, but I do have to be careful about that when I go ahead and lower the car all the way down. We'll ease it down, make sure all the blocks are working properly before we take it off the lift. So I'm going to get this wheel on. We'll get the wheel on the other side. And imagine if I didn't have a wheel alignment pin for an old guy. I mean, that's so nice to be able to just put that on there and leave it while you get the first and second lug bolts started. Well, that was a lot easier than I thought. Actually, those pipes kind of just lined themselves up when I lowered the car down. It was nice. I put those long bolts in to keep them falling out. It's a little hard to get under there and do anything as you're lowering the car, and it's not very safe. So we're fine. I'm going to keep lowering it now just to make sure that I have enough blocking here. Okay, it's off. Now you see I'm probably slightly high in the back for normal ride height, and I'm a little bit low in the front, although I'm going to have to add some air to this tire, but I'm going to be fine to be able to drive the car out and put it up into storage. You can see it's free of the car lift arms now. Well, this will probably be the last time you see old gold for a while because it's going to be sitting in storage until those leveling valves come back. This kind of reminds me of high school when we used to put a rake on our cars. Anybody remember those days? What do you think? Does it look cool with that nose dropped? Notice the ride. There's no springs. Well, this will be good enough for storage. All right, next project. It's about time to wrap it up for this Saturday, and I'm looking outside here thinking, well, what car should I drive home today? You know, it really is a nice day, and I know there's one car here that wouldn't make it home. But rather than show you what I'm going to drive home, I'm going to let you listen to it and let you guess which one it is. So I'm going to sneak back here and get this car out. And then let's see if you can figure out which one it is by the sound of the engine. First clue is opening the door. Whoa! Turn the radio down. All right. Anybody want to guess which car I'll be driving home tonight? I want to wish you all a great week, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you next Saturday.